Hello Tigers, welcome to Clemson University. As many of you may know, Clemson University was not the institution that we attend nor that we hear so much about today. The land of Clemson University originally started with John C. Calhoun and his wife, who actually founded the land. And the house standing as the central historic artifact behind me is known as the Fort Hill House. This was the house of John C. Calhoun and later our founder, Thomas Green Clemson. The Fort Hill House was built in 1802, and the acres that actually surround the land was once a plantation and inhabited thousands of slaves. Come on guys, does anyone have any questions? Yes.
So what is it now?
Actually, Thomas Green Clemson, our founder, envisioned the Fort Hill House to be open for the public and actually wanted people to actually visit the inside. So it's actually a museum now where people, like visitors, tourists, can come and actually look inside the house of our founder and the late John C. Calhoun.
So when you guys think about Clemson, you're probably picturing the iconic Tillman Hall. Well, today it's home to Clemson's Air Force ROTC detachment, as well as multiple classes and clubs. Its history has remained shrouded to the general public. It's named after Ben Tillman, who served as both congressman and senators to South Carolina in the 1800s. Despite his achievements, Tillman's more controversial actions have been left relatively unknown. He boasts about his involvement with the racially charged 1876 Hamburg massacre, as well as his involvement within the Red Shirts militia group, subgroup in the KKK. His focus on political ambition led himself to align with these groups prolifically, and once he got into congressional office, he attempted to stifle the black vote. What's up?
Recently I read that he was an extreme racist and he supported lynching of African Americans. And so if he was included in all of that and a part of a massacre, why is this building named after him?
So Tillman was a product of his time. While his actions are despicable in the modern context, he's remembered for his achievements to the state and to the school. And we like to acknowledge the fact that Tillman Hall has become a place where Clemson has adapted and grown with the times, as well as shifted to more positive viewpoints and more inclusive viewpoints for everybody on campus, regardless of their ethnic makeup or background.
We're approaching Sykes Hall, built in 1904 by Grand Mason Bellinger. It was named after the 6th president, Enoch Walter Sykes. It is now home to the administrative building here on campus, but was originally home to agriculture and later was also the library before Robert Cooper was built in 1966. There's actually an incident that occurred in 2016 that Clemson University doesn't like to admit. There was a protest that happened because rotten bananas were hung on the African American banner just right here.
So how did the university respond to the 2016 protests?
So they actually published a guidebook, and President Clements has been trying to get the campus more diverse over the past 5 or 6 years.
Okay, how successful has the campus been so far in increasing diversity?
I think there's been much improvement across campus in trying to get everybody involved.
And here we are in front of the Strom Thurmond Institute. This building was built to protect and preserve some of South Carolina's most important and historically relevant documents after Senator Strom Thurmond announced that he would donate his memorabilia from his term as a U.S. Senator and as a South Carolina Senator and South Carolina Governor to his alma mater, Clemson College. Strom Thurmond graduated from Clemson in 1923 before being admitted to the bar and serving and practicing law in South Carolina. He was the longest serving U.S. Senator until 2006, and his legacy was tainted shortly after his death when it was revealed that when he was 22, he impregnated one of his family's African-American housemaids who was 16, and they had a child. This is problematic because in Strom Thurmond's long career in legislature, he constantly stood for states' rights and stood against not only the American Civil Rights Movement, but also desegregation. All right, now we're approaching Serene Hall. On your left, it's now the School of Business. Now we stand in front of Serene Hall. Serene Hall used to be the location of the old slave quarters on Clemson's campus. It was located just across from Fort Hill, where the owner of the plantation lived, and it was the location of some of the worst atrocities committed on this campus. Even though this place was built and inhabited by 140 slaves, there were no historical markers to mark the atrocities committed here until very recently. Now, Serene Hall is home to the School of Business, which is an ironic turn considering most of Clemson's business when it was a plantation was based off of the backs that lived here. Does anyone have any questions?
So why do you think that there aren't any significant historical markers showing off the area, or why hasn't the public been aware of this until recently?
I think a large part of why Serene Hall wasn't marked as the old slave quarters is because it was so easy to cover up. There's a building here now. It doesn't look like this used to be home to slaves. So why would Clemson draw attention to something that was bloody and nasty when they could just act like it was always the School of Business?
Here behind us we have the Woodland Cemetery, built in 1922 by former President Walter Riggs. This cemetery houses faculty and staff that have worked at Clemson for over 20 years. There are hundreds of marked gravestones. Many of them you'll find familiar, as many of them are names of buildings on campus, such as Earl and Holzendorf. These gravestones celebrate lots of people who have an influential part of Clemson's past and their history. However, there are no grave sites on Clemson's campus that are for the slaves that lived on the plantation or that helped build many of the buildings. Are there any more questions?
So I understand that the university has been progressing a lot in embracing its cultural diversity and its ethnic roots, but I'd like to ask why the grave site doesn't have at least a tribute to the African Americans who helped build the place.
So our school is definitely growing a lot in popularity and population, and we've been getting a lot of donations, which are very important to help the school thrive and keep continuing on the path that it is going. So we don't really want to bring up our negative past and talk about that a lot, as we want to keep continuing on forward.
Clemson gives campus tours like this to upcoming students every year to familiarize them with the history and beauty of Tigertown. However, in these tours, Clemson tends to gloss over the fact of the campus being a plantation and being a slave-owning plantation at that. The disregard for this history is inexcusable, and a cost-effective way for us to learn about the true history of Clemson and not the history they choose to show us would be allowing this African American history to be included in CU 1000 for all upcoming freshmen. And with that being said, that could increase the transparency of Clemson and make this and decrease the knowledge gap between all of our incoming and former students.